The Montessori philosophy is definitely a huge component of what Tall Pine School is about. There is no question. But it is also infused with the Ontario curriculum pedagogy. So we are actually balancing both philosophy and pedagogies together with our students.
In this video, you'll meet Janet Zaharchuk, who's the principal of Tall Pine School in Brampton, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear her explain the values of the school. You'll also hear her talk about how the school balances a Montessori philosophy with the Ontario school curriculum. And you'll also hear about the reputation that Tall Pine students have outside of the school. So why don't you start by telling us 3 things that you love about your job?
Wow, only 3? Okay. 3 things I love about my job. First of all, the fact that I've been here for as long as I have is an indication that I love what I do. I think my calling has always been to be in the teaching profession because of all of my experiences that I've had up to this point, from the time I was a young child to where I am now, has drawn me to the teaching profession. And what I love is the children. They bring life to my life. And I love seeing the joy in their eyes when they have those aha moments, right? The same sort of feeling we have when all of a sudden something becomes very clear to us. So that is definitely one big aspect of what I love about my work. I love that each day is a new day and different, because in the teaching profession, it's never mundane. There's always new things to experience, whether it be teaching new strategies, or whether it is learning new information, whether it's just having those dialogues with the children themselves, because they're all so unique and different. I learned so much from my students here at the school that would be definitely a second. And thirdly, I love being with my teachers. The teaching staff make it fun.
Mm.
They are people that enjoy being here. And for me, that just, I mean, who doesn't love working with people that they love being around, right? So for me, that's critical.
And you mentioned that you've been there for quite a while and you've had an interesting journey to bring you to Tall Pines. Can you describe, what your journey has been and what you have brought to your role at Tall Pines that has been beneficial for you?
Absolutely. So I guess as a child, I always knew that teaching was supposed to be part of my life journey. I used to pretend as a child with my blackboard and my stuffed animals and all of that. And as I was growing up, I thought that at the time I was going to finish grade 12, because we did have a grade 13. I know I'm dating myself, but that is a reality. And I was always interested in the fashion industry as well. And so I was actually going into fashion design, because art was something that I was truly passionate about as well, in all of its forms. And I was accepted, and that was the direction I was going to go. When I had a teacher at the school that I attended who said to me, "Go to grade 13. It will open up new doors for you. If you still choose to want to go into fashion design, then so be it. But if you take grade 13, it will open up the doors to go to university," which at the time is what you needed to do. So I studied chemistry, physics, um, math, English, and what was it? I think it was biology. So talk about some pretty heavy duty subjects. So they were the 5. And all of a sudden, it was one of those aha moments that I was talking about earlier. And I realized that science was something that I had never really thought of prior to that. So it opened up doors from having gone to the University of Guelph, and there, of course, is the Ontario Veterinary College. And I started working part-time there, and my studies in biological science drew me to continue working in that field by working at the college in the ORs. And I used to work in large and small animal surgery. And so I had the exposure of working with some great species of animals. But at the time, I also got involved into research work with the professors, the doctors that were working there. And through the work that I did with them, broadened my scope even further, where I started actually training and going back into that sort of teaching mode, which is what sort of started when I was a child. And then from there, I moved into working with the Princess Margaret Hospital in affiliation with them and doing research there. And my research was published, and I traveled to San Francisco to teach some of the concepts and things that I had learned through the research that I was doing at Princess Margaret Hospital. And so there I was back to teaching again. And so when it came to having my children and finding a school for them, I stopped working. And when it came to the point of finding childcare to consider going back to work, there was a school nearby. And so we went, my husband and I, and our daughter was enrolled there. And I was fascinated by the pedagogy of education that was being taught there. And so I offered some of my skill sets. And so they allowed me to teach the grades 1, 2s, and 3s, and the 4, 5s, and 6s in science. And then it just stemmed from there. They sent me for further training. I became what was known as a Spalding teacher, which is teaching children how to read and write and how to read with fluency and comprehend what they're reading. And then I went for further training, and here I am. After my children graduated from that school and went on to high school, I moved on and I came here and I started teaching here. And then from teaching, I went to VP. And from VP, I went to principal. So that's my journey.
And what drew you to Tall Pines when you were making that change from your previous school to here? And what were you excited to do at Tall Pines?
Well, the school I was working at previous only went to grade 6. And so and it was a small school, a small scaled school. And I had heard so much about Tall Pine School. And I knew its founder, which was Elaine Flett. And so I wanted to just experience a larger school environment. I also took some training courses here. And so I was able to see the environment firsthand. And I loved the feel that I felt when I entered the walls of the school. And so that was one of the main reasons why I came to this school. I wanted to experience more than what I had already experienced.
And can you speak to the uniqueness of Tall Pines as a Montessori school, but has certain ways, interjections, different applications of the Montessori philosophy into its education
There
curriculum?
is the Montessori philosophy is definitely a huge component of what Tall Pine School is about. There is no question. But it is also infused with the Ontario curriculum pedagogy. So we are actually balancing both philosophy and pedagogies together with our students. So you could imagine the sort of the amount of integration, workload, understanding that is required by our educators in order to be able to do that effectively, while keeping the children engaged. And so that makes us pretty unique. There aren't too many schools out there that actually can do that, where we can offer both and combine them effectively, while still remaining true to the Montessori philosophy, which is our foundation, actually, of our school.
And what does that look like on the ground in a tangible way in how classes operate? How do you achieve that balance, and what are the benefits that a balanced approach like this do you feel offers your students?
Well, first of all, when you enter the school and you enter the classroom, you will see that it is fully equipped with all of the Montessori materials that is conducive for that specific age group, right? And so when we are talking about the infant program, which is where we start, you will see that the material there obviously is very simplistic, but it is also very Montessori, and the teachers are trained in order to introduce independence at a very young age. And so we start accepting students at 9 months, for example. Um, as they progress into the toddler program, which is now called the Prima Casa program, that independence continues to develop, and the materials continue to change in order for the developmental needs of the child. And then, of course, they progress into the Casa program, which Dr. Maria Montessori called the Casa dei Bambini, which is the children's house. So all of the material that is in the environment helps the child with their full development. And then it's not until we get into the elementary years where the infusion of the Antero curriculum really takes place. And that's where we have to look at what are the Antero curriculum expectations and what is the Montessori philosophy expectations. And we as a team bring those two together and say, how is it that the Antero curriculum is actually being covered by the Montessori philosophy? And maybe, not that there are many loopholes, but where is the Antero curriculum maybe doing something that we should cover that has not been touched on by Montessori? And I say that with true honesty, because generally the Montessori pedagogy covers pretty much everything that the Antero curriculum does in a different way. Now, to suit some of our families, we do incorporate literature such as books, the language power, the wordly wise, and obviously they advance as they move up into our program. So yes, there's those components that are commonly seen in a public school setting that are incorporated within our elementary programs, and certainly they advance as you move up into the grade 8 class, for example, where of course there's a lot more novel studies going on, Shakespeare's introduced, all kinds of things. And so, yes, that's how we tend to amalgamate the two pedagogies.
And is the structure of Tall Pines built so that ideally students begin potentially at 9 months, maybe a little bit later than that,
Yes.
and continue all the way through until grade 8, so that you can have that building upon and that continuation of development?
Yes, yes, we've had many families. I think initially families come into the program thinking, well, we'll do the first few years, give them a good start in life and then move them into the public school system. We have been very fortunate in that once our families get introduced to our programs and actually see what the program does for their child, um, we tend to keep our children right up to grade 8. So that speaks volumes. And what speaks even greater volumes is that our graduates come back and visit, and they always know that this is home. They know that whatever relationships they developed over time with our teachers, that we have had longstanding teachers here, that they can always come back and chat with them about their high school years. I've had students come back. In fact, I'm expecting one today uh, that is then at Appleby College, actually. And so she is coming back, and she comes back annually just to say hello and to, say how grateful she was for the education that she received here. So I think that speaks volumes when you can have those students who will come back and connect with you, whether it's in person, whether it's by email. Sometimes the lessons that they learned here, as adolescents, as they move on, they don't necessarily truly appreciate all aspects of it until they get out into the real world and experience it there. And then all of a sudden, it's one of those another aha moments where, wow, now I get it. Right.
And those graduates from Tall Pines, is there a typical trajectory that they continue on after they graduate from the school? Is there a
Yes.
kind of location school system that they gravitate towards?
Well, it's quite interesting because we are so fortunate that our graduates are almost sought after. I guess that's the best way I can put it. Whether they choose to go and apply to regional arts programs, whether they choose to go and apply to those highly prestigious high schools such as Appleby College, St. Mike's, the University of Toronto School, Holy Name of Mary, they get accepted. The IB programs. We've had students that I remember teaching myself prior to going into administration who graduated from IB with 100%. Like that is almost unheard of. So it's something that we're just so extremely proud of that fact. And I remember actually hearing this family come to us and say, you know what, Mrs. Z, when we went for our interview at one of the regional arts schools, it's like they have a separate pile for our Tall Pine School students. And I just kind of smiled, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. I really don't know. But the fact is that there even families that have come back, for example, have said, oh, your daughter or your son is from Tall Pine School. I can tell by the way they behave. Right. So I think that speaks volumes.
And
Yeah.
and how would you describe the culture, the lifestyle, the atmosphere at the school?
You know, I mean, obviously, right now we're in a pandemic, so being able to enter the school is forbidden, quite honestly, outside of the students and the staff. We have essential workers that can come in, of course. And like I said, if I know of a particular um, student who wants to come in, of course, they have to go through the screening and that whole process, but then they can only meet in my office. There's no freedom of movement throughout the school. But let's speak prior to the pandemic. Let's go back to those days, which I'm hoping will be coming again. And this has been said so many times. When you come into Tall Pines School, it is this feeling, and I think I spoke to you about this, about how I felt. There is this feeling of warmth, of joy that you see in the children's faces. The children have no knowledge of any adult coming into a room or into the school. So it's not put on. It's a very natural thing for them on how they behave. So when families would come into the school, let's say for a tour, and they would be able to just feel the ambiance how natural everything is within our walls, the happiness within the staff, laughing, being, jovial and cajoling one another, and how they interact with the children themselves. And more importantly, how our children will go up to these individuals and just say hello. Like it's just, they greet them. There's this sense of comfort knowing that if you're allowed in the building, you must be a safe person, right? So it is, yes, it's this feeling of warmth, of a welcome, of transparency, joy in children's eyes when they people come in and see classroom in action. You very rarely get to see where the teachers are. You think that they're just blending right in with the students because they are just so normalized in the activities that they're involved in. And it's like, it appears like the classroom is running itself. So,
And I
yes.
wanted to ask you about the specific playgrounds and the play structures that you have on campus. What makes them special and unique?
They're natural. They're just an unbelievable. There are TPs, there are, everything is built for keeping the child's uh, sort of mind in mind, right? So allowing mobility of riding bicycles, yet allowing areas for them to play in sand structures, yet allowing them to pretend they're in a teepee, yet allowing them different wooden structures to sort of practice their balancing, allowing them to have the ability to use slides and go down the slides and take turns, allowing them to walk on certain paths, elevated paths so that they can work on balancing. And that's for our younger group. And then for the older group, we have our basketball, nets outside. We have our soccer field, which is large. So there's a lot of space for flag football, soccer, running, basketball, that kind of thing. So yes.
And how do you handle communications with parents if there's a conflict or a misunderstanding with somebody in the school, their child or a teacher?
Right. So generally, I would empower the staff first to be the first line of defense, right? So if there is a concern, then the parents should be contacting the teachers, right? To identify what is the concern, what has been going on. And then, at a teacher level, parent teacher level, hopefully that it can be resolved. However, maybe it's something that requires my attention. And at that point, if that is the case, then the parents, the teachers, myself, we will meet and we will discuss and try to come up with strategies. First of all, I would be informed of the situation, so it's not like I'm out of the loop, but I don't necessarily step in right away. I really want to empower the staff in such a way that they know the children that they're teaching, they know the families. And so let them be able to come together and communicate with one another, whether it's initially through email, phone calls, or whether it requires an in-person parent-teacher interview. And if I have to sit in because both parents and teachers would like me to, then I have no issue with that. And also, if parents may have a particular concern that they would rather just go directly to me, that's not an issue at all. I have an open door policy, and that is across the board, whether it's involving the students wanting to come in and have a chat with me about something that they're experiencing, whether it is teachers that are having some concerns, or whether it's parents. So the door is always open.
And is there a common trait or thread that you find links the families who are drawn to tall pines together? Is there a common reason or a thing that they're looking for that they find in tall pines?
I just, from my sense, I think it's more from a stakeholder's perspective, which I include myself as part of the stakeholders. It's that sense of community, that sense of family. When we are, you know, in full force, our classes are full, and yet we do a lot of activities where we bring the families in. We want them to see what the children are doing. We want the children to present to the families. We celebrate all cultures. We're non-denominational, and we will do a Mother's Day celebration. We will do a Father's Day celebration. We will do, you know, anything to celebrate, to bring families together, is one of the things that I find is really unique for us as well. And we'll have dinner dances, we'll have the fall fair, we'll do all kinds of things. And a lot of them are children run, which is even better, right? Because we get their input, and especially those that are our senior students. We have those that are elected as prefects, and so they will get the rest of the student body, through assemblies, through what announcements, whatever, whether they make posters, whether they do write-ups that then go out to our parent body. And then we, of course, invite everyone to come together and celebrate.
And can you speak to the core values of Tall Pine School?
I certainly can, yes. The core values of Tall Pines School really stems from its vision, and is at the very heart of its mission. And so we are a nurturing community. And so you say, well, what does that look like? Well, it's without permissiveness. So it's being supportive while being compassionate. It's about parent engagement, because that nurturing community, it really does take a village to raise a child. So that is definitely a core value of ours. Another one is the inspiring of the lifelong learning. I know it's something, a cliche that is heard of in many schools, or probably oversaid, but it's the passion of our teachers, who they themselves are learners. And if they are the positive role models for our students to be those passionate learners, to want to know why something is working the way it is, or let's delve deeper into something, or let's research it, then children want to engage in that kind of mentality as well. So that is what I mean by the lifelong learner. And it also, it's us about awakening all the possibilities that are available for children, and letting them know that the world is full of possibilities, right? Um, we take a great deal of pride in our facility. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's inviting, engaging, welcoming. As I've mentioned many times already, we strive for excellence in everything that we do, whether it's for our own personal growth, which then gets transferred onto the children so that they start to learn to strive for excellence. And then also, I think one of our main core values is the respect of the whole child. We really work hard at focusing on developing the child, not solely academically. There is so much more. There's the emotional growth and the social growth, and helping them learn to be good citizens of the world. So I know it's an elementary school, but we have to think beyond that, because they are going to move on into high school, and then hopefully eventually into higher education, which then hopefully the lessons learned at a very young age will travel with them so that they become the global citizens that we hope they will be.
Is there a student that wouldn't be the right fit for Tall Pines?
Um, no, we're in the field of education. And, you know, children, all children want to learn. All children are curious. Now, do they all come with the same abilities? No, they don't. But that doesn't mean they're not capable. That doesn't mean there isn't a way of trying to reach these children. And so we work alongside the families. We'll work with outside organizations. We will work with whomever it takes in order to help guide these children to reach their full potential.
And if Tall Pines was a person, what personality traits would it have?
Well, I think if you, I don't know, I think of tall pines and it just makes me smile. So I think of happiness. I think of courage. I think of strength. Um, wow. I don't, I think of trust. Um, I don't know if I can just come down to one characteristic trait. You know, it's just, it embodies courage and strength for me. That's what it does.
And looking ahead at the next 5 or 10 years, do you see anything changing or being added to what you offer at Tall Pines, or anything that you'd like to grow or add to the school?
Well, you know, we're always looking for making improvements. You cannot remain stagnant in education. And so we're always in, you know, in pursuit of knowledge. I mean, if you are truly passionate about your work in education, you have to be in pursuit of knowledge. I continue to study myself. I expect it from my staff. Um, you know, they're the role models for the children. So, you know, in terms of growth opportunities, we have been asked so many times by our parents, please, Mrs. Z, please, can you get us into a high school, get us a high school under Tall Pine School? So, you know, that is something that is under consideration. So to expand beyond our grade 8, right? So we're looking at maybe doing something like that. I don't want to put it out there quite like it's happening, but we're listening. And it has come to our attention multiple times. So it is something that we are looking into. And always ways of improving our programs, always. There's that goes without saying.
Mhm. And what's your advice for parents, families who are in their search now?
In their search now, well, if sans COVID, I would say come to the school, enter it, feel what the school feels like, meet the principal of the school, have a discussion with the principal. I think the principal generally gives you a sense of what the school is all about. Meet the teachers, you know, have a tour. If possible, you know, have a tour when the children are actually in class, because that will really give you a sense. You'll get a sense as soon as you enter through the front doors, how you're greeted, right? So, and often we even have our students give the tours rather than it be any one of us. Who better to give a tour than one of our grade 7 or 8 students? If they can do it, then I think it speaks volumes.